Welcome to the Consultants Way podcast, where we explore the world of professional services consulting. Hosted by Dean McMann and Anthony Paluska, each episode delivers expert insights, real-world stories, and interviews with top consultants to help you refine your consulting skills.
Thanks for joining us. This is Anthony Paluska, and I'm Dean McMann, and we're going to spend a little time talking today about current events, issues, questions we get, things we're interested in, and some things we're not that interested in.
Oh, I think we're interested in these. New year, new season. We're here. We're back.
Yeah, year two.
Yes,
year two.
We are back for it. I think this year we're gonna be trying new and different things. We introduced the current events at the end of last season. We're gonna keep doing that. We're gonna try and bring on a lot more industry thought leaders and some of those kinds of people and mix those in.
We're gonna increase our release of material because of that.
That's right.
Also. We're going to have a puppet show. Yep, that'll come out in March probably on our daily releases.
Yeah. So very excited to keep doing this. We've got a great backlog of some people that we've interviewed and we've got ready for release and ready to share with everybody. So very, very excited about how we're kicking the year off with this podcast.
And meeting some wonderful people.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So one of the first things that we get a lot of communication about is how are things changed because of the new administration for the tech industry? Yeah. And one of the things, and you mentioned this just a little while ago, is it's kind of interesting to watch. And I'm going to make a statement only because of his age that Trump probably is not the most tech savvy person, and probably Biden wouldn't. That's not a comment. It's just their age, but. Boy, are we getting a lot of tech people involved and close to action that might make a much smarter decisions about how to support our tech industry.
Yeah, I mean, I think even compared to Trump 2016 Trump and that administration, feel however you want to feel about him and his policies and all of those sorts of things, he has certainly surrounded himself this time with tech leaders and everybody from J.D. Vance and his background with Peter Thiel and that whole crew, but and Elon Musk, and the list goes on to the people that are leaders in that space that are going to be influential, it appears.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Not that they all agree at all.
No.
And we've already seen that.
But a nice balance, right? A nice pro-business, pro-technology, growth of things like M&A and venture capital and supporting some of that stuff that may have been restricted in the recent past. I think there's going to be a boom of growth for a lot of those reasons.
I was really happy to see Larry Ellison up there, on the announcement the other day. I think that, but also it bleeds over into something very practical for this argument, maybe too strong a word, this discussion between who should be allowed into America easily, right? We've always been an immigrant country. My family was immigrants. I'm sure your family were immigrants at one time. So, and the H-1B visas. So there's a big discussion. As I mentioned, I was just talking to a Canadian executive yesterday. They believe, he's with a big firm, they believe that we're going to be taking in the best and brightest from around the world, and that's going to be our, not that he has any special knowledge, but the idea of it affected the way he's planning with his family. He wants to move to the U.S., and he's been precluded from that, but he could do that because he's got special skills, or at least would be needed in our tech industries. So I'm excited about that. I would love to think that we're bringing in the best of the world.
Yeah. I mean, how do you think that's going to affect everything from hiring strategies of firms to, how do you see that playing out?
Well, good and bad. So one negative impact on compensation. If you have access to people from countries that just don't have our pay scale and you bring them in, it shouldn't be used to lower the overall salary, but the economics of it might affect that. But the other things is I think you can plan a little better for, we're going to do this and we're going to do that because I can get the resources, right? Also, it's going to bring a positive diversity, right? We're diverse. We've always been diverse. We want to be diverse. We want everybody, but positive. If you got some these Argentinians and these Bulgarians and these Russians, and it would just be a real positive.
Yeah. Some diversity of thought is going to help expand everything. Some just access to high quality resources that we haven't had. I think all of that's going to accelerate.
Think of the number of engineers that are educated just in engineering outside of the U.S. compared to the inside of the U.S., where we used to dominate in that and we don't. So, so that's good.
Yeah.
What do you think about your pet peeve of the impact of everybody returning to the office, either full-time or somewhat?
My pet peeve? Why do you feel it's a pet peeve of mine? I'm a big proponent of
not
this.
A peeve. That's the wrong word. So your issue,
my issue. Well,
topic.
Yeah,
pet topic.
Yes. It came up in some conversations I was just having recently, and then as I've been working with some people, it appears to me that there's a little bit of a disconnect about what's going on here, and I've been doing a little bit of research to try and gather the data. And
you're half smart on it.
Yeah, I'm half smart on it.
At best.
I have anecdotes, but I do not have the hard data.
Matter of fact, I would say everything
yet.
we're talking about today, we're at best half smart.
Yeah, that's probably a fair statement.
Okay, but anyway.
But no. I am digging now, and I'm doing some research and trying to figure out some of the data to support this because.
Or is AI really digging for you? But anyway, keep going.
The broader team that includes myself and others and maybe some AI. Yeah. Okay. We're looking into this topic, but there's been a huge trend recently. It started a little bit at the beginning of last year of 2024, but it's kind of accelerated. Where now we need hybrid. We need 3 days a week in office. We need 4. Some organizations are now saying everybody needs to be in the office full time. Even the government's doing some of that in some different places. But I think it's a very strange dynamic, and I was talking to some people that they're experiencing it from afar, and they're saying they've got some experiences and they're worried about their companies after allowing them to go virtual, coming back into the office, and they've made life decisions, they've moved, they've invested in home offices, they've done all these different things to support a remote work lifestyle, and also built their lifestyle around, I don't have this commute, I don't have to deal with all these kinds of things, and they're feeling the pressure associated with it. And they're saying, I don't know why organizations are doing that. Aren't they going to lose so many good resources as a part of that? And that comes to my anecdotes, which are, I think that's intentional. I think organizations, right, we had the quiet quitting where during the pandemic where people were just off doing their side hustles and their different things like that associated with working.
Which I'm against, by the way.
No. But you had this whole group of people that weren't working as hard as they could have, and they were doing the quiet quitting. This is the quiet firing, right?
I love that.
This is a we're finding more efficiencies. We're looking at trying to drive down our costs. And everything's bloated with inflation and with overhiring.
It's overhiring, yeah.
And
so I have a real life story about this. Yeah. I'm going to leave all the names out to protect the guilty.
All right.
But my financial advisor was an executive with one of the largest tech firms and had moved. And they said, you have to move to one of these offices.
Yes, yeah.
Even though they had an office in his town. One of these offices and come in every day. So they quiet fired him.
Right. And the biggest indicator I see of all of this is that in almost all the organizations that we're working with, very few of those people that quit as they get brought back into the office because they just aren't physically there and they're just not going to do that and they could find somewhere else to work. They're not backfilling those positions. They're not opening new requisitions to hire those people to deal with any of that. They're just expecting a 10 to 15% opt-out rate of the new policy, and that trims the fat a little bit around their organization where they got a little bloated.
So there are two questions come to mind. We do believe in your research that we're still dealing with the overhiring.
Yes, and that is not specific or focused only on technology firms or on professional services. Everybody. But that appears to be everywhere.
Yeah. And second, and I only say this because I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago when we were on that. I was talking to a CEO of a $30 billion company, and she felt like by using new tech, which is primarily AI, she's going to be able to trim,
as I call it.
Yeah. She's going to be able to trim 15% of their workforce over a 5-year period.
Yeah.
Just giving things that people do now away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, wow.
So I think there's part of that. I also do believe that there's a lot of leaders and there's a lot of industries, and I feel this way about the consulting business, and we've talked to some of our guests about this over the last couple of episodes, but I think there's a lot of value in spending some time in the office for team culture and team building, and we've lost some of that throughout the shadowing and the mentoring and some of that stuff that just happens less effectively virtually, or at least less naturally virtually. So I do think there's some real benefits and reasons why organizations are doing it, other than to just subtly get rid of 10% of their staff, but they're not upset about the 10% that walk out, despite like the conversation I was having a couple of days ago, where they said, I can't believe they're going to lose all these really good people. And I think that's part of the plan.
Well, also, you were talking about the mentoring and watching and being around the camaraderie.
Yep.
And for the youngest generations during the workforce, that's really needed, particularly if they grew up in a social media communication style, to then transition to a human interaction style, a high human interaction style. Not that they don't have it, but they that's how that's done, or
Yep.
And you can just look at that and the uncomfortable feeling many of them have calling people, right? And they need to see that. So that's interesting. Well, let's keep track of that in your research. Let's move on to something more personal, and something that is one of my pet ideas is goal setting for personal things, becoming the person you want to be. When I was young, during World War II, when I was young, a common saying was, you are 5 years from now what you read and who you spend time with and what you decide. Yeah. And I've always used that, and I know you know this, but I'll just go over my little habit, and then I'd like to open it up. But my little habit is every year I write down first what I want my long-term outcomes to be, not my annual. What is the personality traits of someone who can achieve those? And then what are the personality traits I need to change to become that? And I'll use an example that you've experienced with me. And there was a time where I was the most active at doing all the things in our firm as we built it. And I decided the most important thing for me was to become a coach. And that was a big change from a spider-like involvement and move. And now I've moved so far that I'm like, well, you can do that. You don't need me.
Yeah.
Right. And those were deliberate.
Yeah.
So I really believe that you can move yourself down the road. And you've heard me say this 100 times. Your goals must be more important than your wants.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think people should be doing?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good topic to bring up here, right? We're in January. It's a new year. People set their resolutions. They do these things. I think this is distinctly different. I have a similar but different approach to you.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
But you mean not as good?
Nope, that's not it at all. We'll let the audience decide on that.
By setting goals over a 5-year period and getting back to us?
Yeah, exactly. Try both methodologies out for 5 years and then report back.
A/B testing.
Yes. No. So I think this is distinctly different than resolutions, right? That whatever the date it is, I think we're probably close to that. January 15th or there's some date that's known as this is the year that half the population is already out on their resolutions. So they typically last 2 weeks long, and there's like some measurement for how long that lasts. It's like the second weekend of the year or something. So it's very different than that, because a resolution, right, is I don't know. People tend to give up on those, and so I don't. It's
two-dimensional.
Yeah. And then it's different than businesses doing their annual strategic plannings, right? This is much more personal, although it can have business aspects of it. I break it into 3 buckets. I don't necessarily have the time-bound nature that you do in that same way, other than over a period of time, 1 to 3 years or something, right? It's kind of loose. It's, hey, what are my personal goals for me, personal development? What are some family-related goals that I have? And then what are some business-related goals that I have for either growing myself in my career, or in this case, growing our firm and helping to support the business.
And income and all kinds
all of that.
Yeah.
But it always starts with, before those goals, and that's why these goals are important to write down, right, more than anything else. Not so much to hold yourself accountable, but at the end of the year or that following January, what did I do?
Right.
And how did this actually get impacted? How close to success was I? And then what are the actions that led to my success or held me back? And let that reflection, I think, is more important than the goal setting itself. It's the analysis of, okay, I wanted to do this. I made a concerted effort at the beginning of the year to say this is what I was planning to do, but what are the behaviors that I actually did that
That's what I measure. At the end of the year, I measure as I said, I'd say, what are the attributes?
Yeah.
And what do I want? I focus on the attributes. Thinking the outcomes will come from the attributes.
I guess you, at least when I heard yours, you were more forward-looking. What are the attributes I need to achieve these goals? I set the goals. I had an opinion of that, but I left myself some flexibility there. But when I go and reflect, I say, well, what are the attributes that drove this success that I want to continue doing, and what are the ones that prevented me from being successful here that I need to change?
Yeah.
And those.
So in my book, you wasted the year by not anticipating those.
Maybe.
By the way, we worked together a long time. The other thing I do, which is weird, but I find it because I read a book
There's
when I was
only
18.
one thing you do that's weird.
I plead the fifth.
Yes. Okay.
But there's one additional thing I do that's weird is I go over my goals as if they were completed and successful. I earn this much. The firm is whatever they are. I am a great husband, whatever they are.
Yeah.
And I repeat them to myself every day like they've already been completed. And that's from the belief that there's things in our own system that work against us and that you have to change that recording and believe in your goals, and that frees you to take action.
Yeah. No,
and I've shared that with people, and no one else has ever that come back and told me they actually do that.
No, but you very much, to your credit, different than many have. Right, if there's like the scarcity mentality, and then there's the mentality of like there's always plenty and everybody can win, and there's always this opportunity.
I'm way over there.
You live your life over here, and,
always.
And you say there's an abundance of everything to be had in this world, and this is just a journey to get my share of all of those things.
And for everybody I care about, their share.
And then supporting them, so that it's always celebrating other
I
successes.
have no idea there's not abundance. Can't even imagine it.
Yeah, and you definitely can't live in the scarcity mentality and do what you do, speaking to existence, hey, these goals have already happened, this has already happened, because you're always concerned with something else. So you have to at least be somewhat towards your side of that continuum to even.
By the way, I'm going to keep this recording forever that you said we have to move somewhere towards Mike. All right. Anything else you want to share with us today? Or anything left on the goal setting that you think is really important that you do? Because you spend a lot of time on what I do.
No,
Do you think it brings clarity? I think
the reflection is very helpful. We go through an exercise even as a firm and as a team where we take some of these from a business perspective and compare those reflections and make sure that we're all seeing it the same way. And so, right. Again, absent a corporate goal setting and planning process, working with on any teams, in any environment like that, doing some of this individually and then coming together and coalescing around it as a group, shared opinion of how did we do and what could we have done differently and what outcomes are we shooting for next year, and understanding everybody's personal opinions of some of that, I think is a very healthy exercise.
Well, that's big. Let's stay on that in a minute, because what you did, and this was really initiated by you guys, you built community around it. You became a little more vulnerable and more honest, and therefore you can move the dials better.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. No, I like that. That's very big.
And you could set some different things. Hold yourself and others accountable.
Hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you were going to be able to do this. Well, I wasn't able to do that because of this.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I think that's great.
You just said one of my favorite things. Yeah. No.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
Thank you guys for joining.
Thanks,
See you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.